So I'm going to talk today about some things that are about blogging, why blogging is important, why we need to blog, and then some things that we're going to, and honestly, that I've learned even in this last week on some things. So, um, back in the beginning of May, Google made what they call a core update. And it's been a pretty devastating core update to a lot of people. And what that core update, one of the things that there's some other things that I think it touched on, but for today's discussion, it wanted you to build on authority. We really haven't talked much about building on authority, but we're going to talk a little bit about it today, and then we're going to talk a little bit about a blog and how to kind of get some of this kind of running right. So Google is looking at you, the individual, and wanting to know how credible you are. How well do you know your business? What do you do? You'll hear me have challenged you in the past to say, how are you an expert? Show Google that you're an expert. But that need to be an expert now is affecting where you actually rank within their system. For those of you like in the health field, you're going to have a little bit higher of a lift than somebody that's in the promotional business. So it becomes this interesting, to my mind, exercise that I have been preaching now for the better part of 2 years to get everybody on point. And I always say, I want you to be an expert. And you guys have heard me say that. I think repetitively, you've heard me say, I've come into rooms and asked who's an expert, and 9 out of 10 people don't put their hand up. I never did understand that, but it is what it is. But we talk a lot about being an expert. So way back when, we would tell everybody to blog, and we would talk about blogging just somewhat to supplement regular content on your website. And we would go ahead and we would talk about putting those pages up to create page count, to create some activity. So Google had some dated activity so that they could check it. But that's like long gone in the rear view mirror now. Now the mirror is more about how are we going to be an expert? And here's Daisy. She wants to say hi to everybody today. So she's over here looking at me. I can't. So when you see a little nose come up, that's who it belongs to. But you got to be an expert, and you've got to talk like an expert, and you have to act like an expert, and you need to have that level of credibility. So the question has become, how do you create those kind of signals? And the main way to do it is through your blog. I'll explain to you a little bit on what should be on that blog page, but I need you guys to understand the overarching concept is you have to have it and you have to do it well. I said to you, what did I learn this week in this discussion, if you will, about authority and having authority? One of the things that I had decided this long before this core update, it was on my 2020 goal list, was to make a podcast. And I went as far as to ask for a podcasting mic for Christmas, which I did get. And I was going to actually do it in a very traditional podcasty kind of way. What has happened since COVID, though, is I'm blending the concept. So what I did was I'm taking these internet marketing clinics that we're doing, and I'm taking the audio from them, and I've turned that into the podcast. So what's happened since I did that now is the second I put those up there and got my links back from Apple, got my links back from TuneIn, I didn't do Spotify yet, and I'm having trouble with Google themselves. But the second I did all of that, all of a sudden I got a pretty good push and a bump, because again, I now have a podcast sitting out there that people are actually subscribed to and are using. So again, I use that authority. You have to have a plan to build authority for yourself. So when I said, why is blogging important more than ever? The reason blogging is more important more than ever now is because of the absolute need to build authority. And if you don't if you don't have that authority, Google is going to pay far less attention to you than they would if you had it. So I want to I want to talk through that a little bit too here. Okay. So I want you to understand that's the reason I'm telling you, you must do this. And it's a way of life. It's not something that I can start to do today and stop doing tomorrow, and then do it the next day. You know, Nancy here, she does yoga. So she has a lot to blog about, from how, you know, joint health, um, peace of mind, calmness, inner strength. I mean, she literally could blog on a yoga subject and be a yoga expert pretty simply. Jim, on the other hand, because he does recycling of plastics, yeah, he's not going to have as straightforward of a course that he would have um, if he had just as somebody like Nancy would have. So I understand that some topics are going to be more difficult than others, but we need to really start thinking out of the box on how we would do this and what we would need to be doing. I also want to talk about, or I'm also going to talk about some of the reasons people fail, because I think that's an important, although I always talk about how to be successful, it's also good to talk about why people fail as well. So that's another whole sub-subject, if you will. But this core update that happened in May, it really is about authority and how much of an expert you are and what do you do to paint yourself as such. They are looking for websites that bring value, that offer something. So and when I tell you I've had a huge jump just simply by adding that podcast, I'm not even really kidding. What I will tell you is that every one of these internet marketing clinics from here going forward will all be in the podcast format. So although I love you to come, and I want you all to continue to come, because that's the only way you're going to get to ask questions. Should you miss one, they're all going to be sitting in the podcast, and they'll actually even update on your iPhone now. So that will help you. So so there is that aspect to it. So from the blog standpoint, what I want you to do is I want you to start thinking about how I can add value to my end users with what I can blog about. And that's not always the easiest thing in the world to do. But you need to, everything that goes on by your day, I would guarantee you has some kind of blog kind of content to it. This morning, I had a meeting with one of my customers, and actually it had nothing to do with the customer, but by the end of the meeting, we ended up coming up with new verticals. But what I want everybody to think about with this is, what did we do? And then how am I going to go out and do this? So we have the bakery that I work with today. I'm actually going to put a blog post up today or tomorrow, I'm hoping, that talks about adding verticals to a business and utilizing the internet. So what my premise is going to be on this is that we took a bakery that's just used to doing the same thing every day, baking. They get up, they bake muffins, they go back home. Today's discussion, what we talked about was doing things like team building, having a gingerbread building contest. So that now adds a component to this bakery that now didn't exist, because you normally wouldn't put a bakery and a team building activity together. But if you had a contest between several sets of departments at a major corporation and utilize the gingerbread as that, or how do you work together to accommodate building a gingerbread house? But basically what we did was, how did we come up with an idea to create an entirely new vertical for a bakery that has nothing to do with being a bakery? And when you start to look at that, what I'm hoping to do is teach people how to use the internet to better further their business, that you don't necessarily just need to stay in the mold of what you do. And that would be my premise for that particular blog post. I've done it enough times for businesses that I kind of feel like I'm qualified, although I don't know that I have some kind of a degree in giving people advice. But at the end of the day, I've done it enough on how to help people increase or expand or add verticals to their business in a successful way, that I think that that's a fair thing. Stimulate questions on people. But when I put that post up, I'm going to stick that out on LinkedIn. I'm going to probably, I may even talk through it with my little podcast function that I now have that seems to be so important. But I am going to come up with that thought and put together a page of corresponding content that goes with it. Each one of you need to start to think about, how can I add authority to my business through a blog? What that means and what that should mean to you is, what are the things and the problems that I solve for people? Nancy, I'm going to put you on the spot, but if I have inflammation issues, can yoga help somebody with inflammation issues? Unmute yourself. I can't hear you.
Well, particularly if we're talking about arthritis, definitely, because doing that, the additional movement will stimulate movement in the joints and fluid development in the joints so that they can move a little bit easier, and it also help with pain.
Okay. So what I did is I took a common ailment, and I'm giving you an idea now of where to go with that to be able to promote your business and do it to a vertical that's not typically your customer. Because people, I don't think, with high pain or mobility issues think, gee, let me go to a yoga studio.
Well, and that's the thing with this, my new direction. I'm really trying to reach people who are more interested in therapeutic yoga rather than the super fit young, what you see on Instagram. So
I didn't even know there was a thing called therapeutic yoga. So there's that too.
Yeah.
All right. So what I just did is I'm giving her the idea, if you will, but I'm doing it in a way that helps expand her business. And if you speak to it from an authoritative standpoint, the other thing is, and if you all haven't done this yet, I need you to make sure you do it, is I need you to put together a author's box on the bottom of every page that you have. If you're using WordPress, you can do it with Starbox. I've said that before, but you need to have an author box about you on every page. And you need to start setting the deck that you're an expert. Google needs to start seeing you across the internet as an expert in what you do. Now, in Lance's case, he does a party bus, but he actually could be an event planner. And he's he can talk about how to plan events, how to plan unique events, how to plan corporate events. He can kind of start to talk to some of that and make himself be an expert from that standpoint. That would be one thing he can do. He also could put a close camera, circuit camera, and done, party bus gone wild. But, we'll just kind of save that one for a different day. But I can't help it. It happens. Anyway, so I want you guys to start thinking in a different way. It is extremely important that you have a blog. It's extremely important that the topics are well developed now. It's extremely important that you actually make a speakable impact on what you're doing. And it's wildly important that it lives on your website. I saw Byron came in today, and he's one that always puts his stuff out on LinkedIn. And I think a lot of times he's not getting that expert credit for his website because they're not properly linked together long term, that they work well, if that makes some sense. I mean, just so you kind of understand what I'm saying there. The authority factor of the blog and what's created by the blog is exponential. So there's some winning combinations, if you will, that happen, which is winning combination one is that I have all these extra pages being created. The next piece of it is that if I do it and speak to it from authority, Google starts to view you as a much more well-rounded person. They start to understand who you are. I have made sure for me, when you start looking at me personally, you'll see that I've put as much time into developing my blog as I have been to developing my brand for me. And every one of you should start to look at how to do that. The blog is a platform, don't misunderstand, but I think you have to kind of go beyond that and then look and think about, what do I want to do to make sure that I myself am the person that's attached to all of this. So when I start to look at me personally, I'm like all over the place. I don't even know how to explain that. I kind of thought about this way back in the day. So I have been building authority for myself now for the better part of 15 years, probably, since I started this. But I'm gonna pull my screen up here so you can see it a minute. The dog's head's in the way. Your head's in the way. Hold on a minute. It's my Zoom window. Yeah, literally, your head is blocking the room. You see her sitting there like pupil looking at me? Isn't that funny? See her? Like, there she is. She's my closest up pupil, hanging on every word I say. No, you cannot give me your paw.
I thought it was your dog brooch.
No, it's just my dog. It's my actual dog. It's not even a brooch. It's my dog.
I know. I'm teasing when I say that. I realize.
She's just Daisy. I don't know. She's just sitting here listening to me on all of this. But hold on, let me get my screen shared here a second. Just blocking the screen. I know you cannot be so cute. Stop that. All right, hold on a minute. So I like when you guys see my screen now, right?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. All right. So let me
Yes.
show you what I did on myself here to do this. So when you put me in, the first thing you have is a Wikipedia page for me. So I was able to do that. And I have all these attachments that knock that side out. So they tell me about these pages. I've got my About Us page that talks about who I am on SEO 411. I have a biography of myself that explains who I am on SEO 411. I've done the same for me on ACTWD. I've got my LinkedIn page. I've got my Twitter page. I've got my Facebook page. Then what we have, you see my little name here? We have me doing community events. And I will readily admit this, that I know that when I started helping the stuff on Perry Homes for my neighborhood, that I would benefit as an individual because my name would be out there in conjunction with other things, but it would still appear. So you can see the 8th one down now is the Chronicle, me talking about Perry Homes problems. YouTube video talking about me with Perry Homes problems. Now that's the first page. As you can see, it continues to go on. And I have a really difficult name because, as you can also see, that Beth and the guide, they appear as a pamphlet, not necessarily me. But you can kind of see how far down I've built. I've got the whole first and the top of the second page now built with stuff about me, with that Wikipedia being one of the most important things that I did. Okay, now not all of you can have a Wikipedia page. Don't misunderstand me. But this Wikipedia page is really a big deal. And I went out of my way to make sure I had that. The other thing on the Wikipedia page you'll notice is that I'm able to get to pass back to my 2 brands. So I was able to bring it back by doing it. The next thing I'm going to do is add a podcast section on here, that I'm now a well-known podcaster and academic person on SEO. So we start to do stuff like that too. So you start to see that I built me up and I've built the company up. If you put the SEO 411 in, and this has all been on purpose, but you guys have to have these same type thoughts. And if you notice here, you notice I actually featured, I actually let them feature it right here in the scroll down. You can control this through your Search Console through Webmaster Tools, what's listed here. Well, I wanted the blog listed here. And if you notice, I let the seminars and the classes be the actual first link because that's usually what people are looking at for us for. But that blog is got some authority to it simply because it's listed here within the site links. And if you come down, here's LinkedIn, Facebook, the chambers that we belong to. So you see I've got 3 links, 1, 2, 3 coming back off of 3 chambers of commerces. And then I start into professional directories. I don't know how far down this one goes. Let's see. But you see all these things that I'm doing and building. This is AP News. AP picked up our story, and I did this again, thinking on purpose. AP picked up our story on digital televisions with Zoom meetings in nursing homes so that people could talk to their family on. So we help facilitate that. Well, AP is now, I've got a link back apparently from AP that I didn't know I had. Yahoo. So you see how this starts to be in Google's head. Google now starts to see this and see how far and how deep and how far I go. They understand that I'm an authority. I'm a subject matter authority on. So see, they've even now pulled that tuned in only went live on Sunday, and you see it's already all the way up to here before it's how far up it is. So I tend to wonder, my guess is we're going to find out. Eventually the Apple link is, I think, going to show up as well. But you see how far down I'm on page 3. I'm probably, this is going on. It just, 1, 2, yeah, we're, I have no idea what that is. I probably need to go disavow it. But you see how far down how far we are and how far out we are into before we start getting out of anything that has to do with us. Look, even here, I'm even here off of the SBDC. Yeah, I didn't even know this was here. Where it says I come from. So it's interesting, but that's what you should be going for. And the way you're going to do that is the way you're going to have to do that is you're going to have to do that through blog, through calculation. You need to make sure that you talk to people properly so that they understand what you're doing and how you're getting there and what you're doing to get there. And if you don't do that, then you don't have the authority and you're way down on the pole. And what I will show you is I made, for those of you that have been here for a really long time, you'll know I did this. Back in March of 2015, I decided I was going to build a website that was do as I say and not as I do. And I did that with the hosting company website. And I ended up getting a whole bunch of positions and a lot of high-ranking places on things that worked out well. Well, back in January, I decided I was going to do the same thing on SEO 411, and I want to show you what an effort to build authority can actually yield you. Because I think it's important to understand what the end game is to know how to get this to go forward. This up here. So I want you to see the straight up effort I have. You see how? Let me see if I can get a chart so you can see this. You see, this is me in January and this is me now. That's my effort to push this forward. Here's another example of it. Here it was here. I've picked up almost 110 links since the beginning of the year, since when I decided I was going to do this. I've worked really hard to try to bring this about, but it's all because I known that I needed to have the authority to get that done. Here you go. Hold on. Go if you're going. Sorry, the dog now wants to get down. She's going to steal the show today. The other thing, let me show you the other side of this too. because I want to show you what this nets you if you're able to do this right. If you put this all together, and I think the blog is the jump off point to it, to be honest with you. Let me see, where's my projects tab? Hang on a minute. It's pulling up now. You all see my screen, right? Yes?
Yeah.
Affirmative. Okay, good. Because
Yes.
you don't see it. All right. So, again, you see that sharp incline here that we've got going on. And you can see it again on this chart here. This is the keyword chart, but what's interesting is this, and I'm going to sort this. How do I want to sort this? I want to sort this by volume. Okay, so what I'm doing is I'm sorting the searches by the number of searches done. And the reason I'm doing that is so that I understand what my opportunity is to get something ranked on it and where we are in the grand scheme of it all. Okay, so SEO service nationally is 14,800. I'm nowhere on that, but that's a pretty high-end keyword website. These are national terms without any deference for location. So understand that's what we're looking at here. Oh wait, you're a different dog. So we have that. Now, if you look as we start to come down, this is a really big term, and I'm now floating in the top 10 on this particular term. This is this and this. These two are money terms. So you see, I came out of nowhere. And let me see if it'll do this. I think it gives me the history of it. Let's see how far back it'll go. There's a way to pull a history on this, but if you go back, we were in the hundreds. I think we're in the high 40s at the beginning of the year. And I've pulled this all the way now to the first page. These two here are the two biggest terms I can rank on. They say this one here is a big word, this SEO expert, and we're number 1 and number 2 on it respectively, depending on which direction you want. I've pulled that expert between the homepage and the links to the homepage. I've pulled it to number 1. The thing is that there's other people that have more links, but I'm still beating them because we have more authority. We have a higher authority, and I have a better position. So Google knows that when I speak, I have a whole much better, I hate to keep using the word authority, but they can trust me more than they can just anybody speaking because I've been doing it for so long. The other one here that is moving up now is this web design. I want to see how long. I only started on this back in the beginning of May to move this up. This was in the 80s. I've now got it to 31. That's another big term. So web design Houston and Houston web design, you'll see there's this one's 38, so it was as high as 28. But these two here are another 2 biggies. So if I pull those and can get those to the front page. So I'm working on building web design type topics. And you'll notice that some of the topics from the authority standpoint that I'm talking on are how to design a website. The thing I'm doing at the end of the month for HCC is we're going to talk about, because inevitably I have to talk about Squarespace every week anyway. So I figured what we'll do is we'll do how do I build a website from start to finish. So that they can get those questions in, but it's all about trying. I purposely picked that topic to help drive that web design link. So we'll see how long it takes. Today is June the 10th. We'll see how longer it takes to me to get that to the first page of Google. I only started end of April working on it. So we'll see what that actually looks like. You can kind of come down this, but do you see how everything is moved up now? You can see everything's taking these huge leaps on higher traffic terms. And the reason why is because of all the authority. I am not doing link building. Okay, so does everybody know the difference between what I'm talking about and link building?
Yes.
Nancy? I'm going to take that as a no. All right, so if you don't, Jim says he knows, and you want to tell me what you think the difference is between what I'm talking about here and what those two are, what the two of them mean?
Yeah, well, you're writing articles and putting things on the internet that are making you an expert in Google's eyes, as you see, versus going out and writing an article that's good enough that makes other people want to link back to that particular article. Is that kind of it in a nutshell?
That's a piece of it, but what's missing is that what goes on now is there's people out there that they go to a website and they buy a blog post, and in that blog post they makes a link back to their website. That does not build authority. That just builds a link. I am going about things that build links, but those links show that I'm an expert. So what I'm going to do, hopefully by the end of this week, if not by this weekend, I'm going to create a press release that talks about that we've been added to iTunes and we've been added to Tuned In, and that our podcast is now taking off and we're the newest podcast on the screen, blah, 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 for all of that. The reason I'm doing that is because that's going to pick up more authoritative links on, I'm hoping on some tech sites this time, whereas the old people email that I did about getting these carts put in nursing homes, that went into more human interest type places, whereas this one I'm hoping goes into some more techie places. But we're going to talk about web design and how our podcast will address web design issues. Why am I doing that? Does anybody know why I'm thinking about it and doing it that way?
Say that again. I apologize.
No, that's okay. What I'm thinking to do is I'm going to put together a press release that talks about a podcast. Our podcast will cover SEO and it's going to cover web design. Why am I specifically honing in on web design in my press release? Because it builds authority. Because what it's going to do is going to take those authoritative links from the press and from other places and give me links with web design that are
Is a key word.
And that keyword's going to knock back to that web design page. And Google's going to say, you know what? Now you have more links on web design coming out of authoritative situations, and that the press are giving you authoritative situations. So therefore, we're going to give you an authoritative. I'm hoping that another run of press releases on just that web design aspect nets me another 10 points easy. And we'll know, I'll know by next week or the week after how well that moves up from that link. So we'll see what that impact is. And if it starts to move towards the teens, it further goes on and says that's the authority that's pushing that. But I'm creating those pathways. So see, that's the other thing. Go ahead, Byron.
Have you seen the as your site has been moving up? Have you seen the increase in, say, qualified leads coming through a better? Have you been able to measure that, like how many more qualified leads are coming through versus as we move up?
All right. So here's the interesting part with SEO. A lot of people don't necessarily utilize the internet. They don't just Google it and call. Although yesterday or the day before, I have a meeting with somebody on Monday that I'm going to have to help them because their website's a mess. It's gotten penalized. So I asked him how he found me. He said he Googled us, and I'm sure if I go through my logs, I'll be able to find exactly where he came from and what. But the reality is the people that have reached out are people that have real problems with budgets. They're not just people that says, hey, come help me for free. And I think that's a big deal because, I get a lot of the come help me for frees, and I don't mind helping everybody for free. But unfortunately, the mortgage company doesn't take karma as a payment for my mortgage. So But yeah, I feel like we've gotten some reasonable calls. I have gotten a few scam calls too, but we've gotten some reasonable calls now within the last few months from people. But you know, that other thing is you got to look good. You can't look like you're, and I had one guy that went out and he actually went and called everybody before he called me. I got a couple of my customers came back and said, hey, we had some people call and ask about you. And why they did it is because they were in the portfolio section. So I've had people call before they've even called me, and then they've talked to the customers, and then they've called me after they almost called references first, if you will. I don't know that I considered that all those people would be a reference just by putting them there, but hey, you want to call them, call them. So yeah, I actually think I have, and no, I haven't been inundated, but what I will say is I didn't set myself up to be inundated. I think the thing is that I speak to the people that have been screwed over more than I have to the people that are looking for new. We talk a lot about we're not like everybody else that don't just trust anybody. My whole message is that my whole industry sucks and we're good, and we're one of the very few good ones out there. So if that message is not going to resonate with somebody that hasn't been burned already, and I think that I've managed that better anyway. I get the calls I get are from damaged businesses or businesses that were ranking that aren't ranking anymore. I get a lot of those calls. But I'm okay because that's the clientele that I would want rather than a brand new guy that has no concept of right and wrong. So I'm hoping that answers your question, but that's kind of where I'm at. But yeah, it's moving up, and I'm getting some in, and I'm pretty happy with what I'm getting in. But it's been a Herculean lift. I literally spent almost 36 hours straight on how to figure out how to put that podcast together and all the avenues that I had to do to put that sucker together. That was a jigsaw puzzle and then some. And in fact, frankly, I may actually just do it. You guys interested in a how to set up a podcast class?
I don't want to do that in a vlog. I'd rather do a vlog than a podcast.
Well, they're all the same. They're all the same concept. But are you guys kind of interested in that?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and do that because I'm not today, but let me put that on the schedule for next month of how to set it up, and then we'll go through it because
Cool.
it was difficult to find out all the avenues, all the steps, all the things I literally had to do. And then I tried one and it didn't work right. And I tried another and it didn't work right. And it really, and nowhere on the internet, it said, this is how you do it, because it left out steps. It assumed that you had to know something somewhere, and it left out steps.
So
So then
Beth,
I had to go figure out the steps.
when you say it didn't work right, what do you mean? Like the process or?
Yeah, the process didn't work right.
Okay.
Okay, so Jim will relate to this, and maybe Byron. Those podcasts run off of RSS feeds. So what's happening is that RSS feed gets out to something like iTunes, and every time you update your blog, it then updates the RSS feed, which then updates Apple. So creating the right RSS feed path was very difficult. You can't host them local. You can't host them local because and I'm a hosting company, but if I tried to host them local, my understanding was that Apple wouldn't accept it because they don't view the hosting. They want specific podcast hosting servers. So I had to go price that out and figure out what was going to work best. Then I had to figure out, like, the audio on these were like, if I take it and I separated it out, I had to go in and convert the audio down to a smaller file size because somebody like Spotify won't let you have a podcast over 100 megs. But so when you do it with iMovie, it's intrinsically over 100 megs. So I had to convert it downward. So all these things that I had to do, that all I had to sort out with this, I think it becomes a whole, how do I do this start to finish? Even down to the images. I had to create an image. It had to be a certain size, but when I did it out of Canva, I exported it as a PNG and a PNG file, and it was 1.8 megs. So then I had to go in and figure out in Canva how to shrink that file size down, and I ended up changing it around. So there was like all these mistakes start to finish, like that I had to come up with ways to, and I don't know if, and I hate to say this because I don't think this is what it was. I really kind of had to struggle through it because I knew nothing about it. And then I thought, well, if I did this at 30, would I have to struggle through it as much? But I still think, but I still think I would have, because there was all these little traps that were built into it. There was no place to start and finish this. You had to have some level of technology understanding to even, so when I saw it had to be over, so then what do you have to do? You have to figure out, you have to convert the file, and then you have to convert it to go downward, because I'm starting with a video file from Zoom and then making it an audio file, which Zoom gives you, but the file's too big. So it's all these things. But the fact of the matter is, now that I have it and now that it's up, I now have a level of authority that other SEO companies don't have. And if nothing else ever comes out of these SEO classes, but the fact that I have this podcast and I now have a vehicle for it, I'm in great shape for it. I'm thrilled and I'm happy. And in fact, yesterday morning with a cup of coffee, I made one on the Chamber of Commerce to try to help the Chamber of Commerce out. So I actually did one, maybe Monday morning, because today's Wednesday. I did one on Monday morning while I was sitting there drinking my coffee and said, hey, let me just turn this mic on. Let me go ahead and just go with it. And in about 18 minutes for the podcast, 5 minutes to make the cover photo, and another 10 minutes to add it to my website, off it went. So yeah, let's do the how to set up a podcast. I'll do that first. I'll do it for Houston West. We'll do it exactly in this time spot next time. All right. So I'll put it exactly in this time slot, because I think it was, I had to really think through it. And I still, even as I'm posting it, I'm having to think of it. I have to go here, then I have to go here, then I have to go here. There's no straightforward way to do this from a Google standpoint. And I think that's, I didn't want to use a more expensive service. So I could have made it easier for myself, but I was being frugal on cost. I went with the provider that I went with because the space was unlimited. Some of the other podcast providers, the space was limited to 100 megs a month. Well, 100 megs a month is nothing. And if I wanted to increase that upward, it then increased the cost of this way beyond what the unlimited provider was. So there's some issues with the unlimited provider, but I'll take it for the difference in the cost. So that's all those things that we can talk about. But since I put it up, it's done well, and it's making me an authority, and it's still in its infancy, so that's okay. But we'll see how that goes. And if I continue to, I think I've already had 100 listens, and it's only been up, 4 days. So I'm pretty excited about that, just simply because I did it unannounced. I didn't really tell anybody. I threw it out on Facebook, and I've really done nothing to promote it. So that's all of those kind of things. When I put them together, that's all the things that I come up with. So but the blog is also important, because what I did is the show notes are the blog. So what I did is, you have to put show notes on everything, right? So what I'm doing is, when I'm writing the show notes, I'm writing the show notes in a way that it's basically sort of a blog post. So it has my podcast at the top of it. It's got the show notes in the middle of it that support the show, but are written like a blog post. And then if I have a video like this one, I'll have a video. I'm actually putting the video here. Let me just show you what it looks like but I'm doing this all for authority. And this is why you have to have a well thought out blog, and you better get with it. If you're serious about doing this, if you're not doing this, you're really falling by the wayside, because the days of writing a page of content and sticking it on the internet and that page ranking without any other support are getting further and further in the rearview mirror, guys. And
what is your recommended word count for your blog?
I'm doing about 900 to 1200. Some of them are 2600. I got one right now that I haven't posted that's going to be almost 3,000 words.
Wow. Okay.
I then want to decide whether I'm going to take that 3,000 words and shove a podcasted version, like an audio version of it, not reading it, but explaining what my thought process is when I write it, throwing it in there. So I'm actually thinking of taking, because this is going to be pretty beefy. I think for me to talk on it, it'd probably be about a 45-minute talk on just what that blog post is about. Yeah.
So I have a question. So as this changes, like even like with me, I post some blogs, I post some, but I see as how now it's becoming much more demanding. Even if your business stays the same, and if you're profitable, it's almost like the energy it takes to maintain has increased and has changed now. It's almost like that's an increased cost of managing your website now.
Yes, I agree with you completely.
Yeah.
I don't, and you're going to have to do it, because here's the thing. All right. Why do we think Google's going to give us something for free?
Right.
If I don't pay them for it, I'm paying for it in a different way, which is my time. Now, once you get the process down, it's not so bad. So, okay, I'm doing these classes anyway. Okay. So that 2-hour carve out is there once a week, twice a week, if not 3 times a week, depending on the week. Okay. So that carve out for the time to create it, and I'm going to tell you a secret on that, but to create it is already carved out. When I'm done here, within about 5 minutes or so of me doing this, I'm going to get a notice from Zoom, which is what has made this easy. You notice, you see me, and I have my camera. I don't know what I'm going to do with my camera at this point. I may take the tripod that I have and figure out how to add an attachment for my iPad to it, because I think it came with one, and I said, what the hell am I going to do with this? And I think I threw it away. But Zoom is going to make this very easy. So what I'm going to end up doing when we come back together in real time is I am going to bring my iPad, and we are going to let Zoom run, which is then going to create the video, and it's also going to create the audio for me. And it's going to store it on the internet. So it's not going to be this whole big fandango that we have to go and edit all these files together. All the things that George and I have been trying to handle now for 3 years since we did this. George used to film them all, but they were all in pieces, so I could never go reassemble them. And it was like I had to go be a video editor. It took me almost 2 hours to put the whole video together. Well, Zoom has made it easy. I think once we come back together, we'll have the crosstalk. We'll have problems. We'll have we'll have our lunches. So I'll have to go in and take a chunk out, but it won't be as hard as trying to put it all together. Long story short, I've got my video, I've got my audio. It becomes as simple then as to upload it and do this. I think that the post-class production becomes a 30-minute time sink, other than writing the class notes. So
hey Beth,
that's gonna be where that's gonna be a problem. Go ahead, Lance.
What is your recommendation on like frequency of blog posts?
Well, I'd like to have one every day if you could do it, but I mean, if you can't, once a week is fine. What I'm going to try to do with this thing is I shoved 4 up this weekend. So I do have 1, 2, 3, 4. I'll have another one today. I am going to try. I suspect that once work comes back that I'm leaving my house more. I think that it's going to be once a week. I'm going to be lucky if I can get something up. So if you look at what I did here, so this is a standard blog post. If I go into edit, this is really the blog. What this big old picture here is the cover art that had to be uploaded for Apple. Apple requires a certain level of things. So, but if you notice here, I've got, let's just go into this directly. From a blog standpoint, cover art, I've got the blog, the podcast video itself, I've got the audio, and then I also have my author's box on the bottom with what I am, who I am, my links, where I go, any recent posts that I've put up. All of them post out like that. So every one of them are a blog, but also it's also on the podcast link. So I can go to the podcast link and it pulls up the podcast only, or I can go to the blog link and the blog posts are added to the podcasts are part of the blog. So those two things are working interchangeably because I'm double purposing my content, if you will, so I can use it in two places at once. And use it for, basically dual purpose the sucker. By the way, you know how I've always told you to take your own pictures? That's my picture. I shot it out of the sunroof of my car. So I'm using even my own picture because, yeah, that was just me being a crazy person. Because, how many times have I told you I take pictures out of the sunroof of my car on a regular basis? Well, there's one of them right there. So I got no investment for any type of art either because I'm using my own photos. So there's not even that problem going on. I'll explain the anatomy of how we set all the rest of this up, but I wanted you to understand that I'm creating a blog post with each one of these. I'm making it be so that they go out. And then once you go into them, I haven't said this for a long time. I know I haven't. You notice this sucker's got 26 shares on it, and that only went up yesterday morning. So that's also going on out there right now. So I've got social sharing going on. I've got my social sharing toolbar going on. It's not counting LinkedIn and Twitter shit because it can't count them, but I did share them both back to that. And I told you, I think repetitively, that to use the share bars off your own website. So we're doing that. I've got all the share bars coming off my website. So I've got all these things and all these factors are all working together now to make this all work right. And then the other thing I did, which I haven't hooked it up yet, is I'm going to make a podcast homepage that's going to have how do I subscribe, how do I get the feeds, how do I sign up, blah, 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 blah. And the reason why is every time I put one of these suckers up, I'm now dinging somebody to come and listen. I'm going to also tell you, and I've really been reluctant to talk about this May core update, but I am going to say this about it, other than the authority, that piece of it. And this is my off the record feeling on it. Google made traffic a delimiter, is what I think. So if you had traffic and your traffic goes down, your website's penalized. If your traffic has stayed the same, then you're just kind of the same. And if your traffic goes up, well then, hey, you must be a better person, so your traffic went up. So this whole podcast exercise was to create traffic. So every time I have a class, I put the podcast up, the podcast goes out and then dings all the subscribers that are on iTunes or all those other places, and it's forcing the update. So I also went ahead and put the subscribe to our blog link on here too, so that's there also. But the reality is I'm now reminding people to come back to the website. So let's say I get 1,000 followers. I now have 1,000 followers. Every time I stick something on Apple Podcasts, their podcast thing comes and downloads my podcast. So I am creating a constant amount of flow back through this website just simply by having that podcast. So it creates a traffic element, which is why else I did it. So that blog creates the traffic, the podcast creates the traffic. I don't care. I went to part of the reason I pulled this up is because Jim said, I want to do a video blog. Okay. There's what I'm talking about is really no different. Jim, this is how I would handle it. This is how I did handle it. So I went back. Let's see if this is it. Yep. Okay. I went back and I took the class I did for Lone Star College, and took the video that I made for Lone Star College, picked the audio out, made it a podcast, called it episode 103, put a title card on it. Okay. But I embedded, because it had an accompanying video, I embedded the video with it just as much as I embedded the audio with it. So I don't know that I necessarily care. The podcast realm runs on iTunes and Google Play, and it's mostly an audio format. Okay. So I don't want to discourage adding just the audio piece of it. But I think everybody needs to kind of take a look at this and see how to put these together so that they work the best possible way. The other thing I did, and I'm kind of sorry I did it, but I'm not going to undo it. I actually made you guys a one-stop shopping page for all the things related to this class, right? So we've got the podcast, we got the sign up for the mail link, but I actually put the entire videos. I'm running the entire YouTube channels embedded into this thing. So as I put these videos up, this page will constantly update that. So you'll have that as well. It's not going to ding you. But again, keeping in mind, I wanted to create traffic. I wanted to keep a constant flow of people. I want to keep, because that core update said you have to be an expert. And I really, to the bottom of my heart, believe that they are counting traffic as part of the delimiter of this. And I think the reason they're doing it, just on my own speculation, is that when the pandemic came, everybody's traffic fell off, but some sites didn't. So they deemed those sites to be better sites, and they gave those sites a lift. So if you don't have traffic, you need to manufacture traffic. How do you manufacture traffic? You put things up that people who maybe do or don't want your service or can't use. Nancy's a good example. She does her yoga stuff. Well, if they all had to come to her studio, somebody in Peoria, Illinois may choose not to follow her because they can't come to her studio in Houston. But if she does this right virtually, she's creating a market for people that can virtually come and get involved with her business that she wouldn't normally have. Lance, same thing with you with party planning. If you just went down the party planning road, yes, you have your stuff here in Houston, but it doesn't mean that you don't manufacture traffic utilizing some of these other things. I'm doing this to manufacture traffic. This page truly is for you guys. I put it up honestly because everybody kept saying, well, how do I find this? And how do I find this? And where is this? And I was like, that's it. I'm putting it all on one damn page for everybody I know. So I have the sign up links. When we go back to live classes, I'll have the register links here. All these things will get added back, plus the Zooms. So this is gonna stay. And then everybody says, what are the topics? And then eventually I forget and have to ask Jim if he still has the email. So I put all the topics here so I know what I'm talking about. And then now, because we have videos, and we're going to have videos because when we go back, we're going to keep using Zoom because Zoom makes Beth's life easy. So we'll always have videos from here on out too. So all of these things, I put this together for you guys. Oh, by the way, did you notice I have 73 shares on this page? That's just people that are trying to follow or sharing this page so they remember about it. So that's not so bad either, considering I really only put it up for all of you. That's why this page is here. It really wasn't put up for general population, but here it is. So, and oh, by the way, because of this page, I'm now starting to rank nationally on SEO classes. So that would be something too, because now all of a sudden I'm going to end up expanding my footprint nationally because of all of this, which means more traffic. So come back all the way to my original premise. This is why you need a busier blog, because without it, you have no way to manufacture traffic. I didn't say drive traffic. I'm saying manufacture traffic. Does everybody understand what I'm saying on that one and why I'm using the word manufacturer versus drive traffic? Yeah, everybody's shaking their head yes. All right. So what questions do we have, guys? Because I kind of have covered where I want to cover today. I wanted to really kind of, do we need to get into the nuts and the bolts of the blog, or have you heard me talk about that enough? I'm really kind of going by who's in the room, also by what I'm saying, because you guys have heard me talk about what needs to go on a blog page enough, I think. You want to tell me, do you know what goes on? Do you have any questions on that? No,
No,
nobody.
I'm good. I blog all the time, so that's how I drive traffic to my page, and excuse me, instead of manufacture it like you say. So, but I do that through my blog by
Okay.
talking about what's relevant in my industry. I mean, on any given day, if you're an expert in your field, you should know what's relevant in your industry.
I have a question for you though. Are these the people that you're driving there? Are they industry people or are they potential customers? Because that's the thing. I'm not driving really potential customers. I'm driving people that want information. That's why I use the word.
I get both. If I write a good blog, I get emails that are potential customers, and then at that point, you got to figure out who's a real customer and who isn't. You know, I tell people.
I get that too.
I tell people it's easier for me because I was a marketing major and I've always been in sales. So I tell people that their biggest challenge is most people are something else. And so they have to go be a salesman first before they can do what their actual job is. Where every day I just wake up and I'm a salesman every day. And
Well, I agree with you on that part of it.
because like I have a friend we've talked about in the past that's an attorney, and he'd rather be an attorney. But I tell him his problem is he's got to go be a salesman first, and then if he's done a good job as a salesman, he gets to be an attorney is what he really wants to be. You know, and so that's the reason I say that. I wake up every day and sell, and so
I understand that. I think when I'm saying I'm manufacturing traffic, yes, I get sales leads from it, but some of these things for me to just put up a general, how do I do blah, 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 that doesn't really, that's not a customer situation. Now, how to identify whether you have a Google penalty or not, that's a customer situation, but I'm kind of doing some of this to answer just general questions. Somebody may happen across us and call us, but at the end of the day, they're really looking for their own information. They're not necessarily looking to hire somebody. I think that's part of my difference in my reality. So, but I agree with you. Always be selling. I wake up every day, and that's kind of my approach on things.
yeah, you got to sell yourself before you get to do what you do. I don't care what you do. You know, that's why they tell you the salesman's the most important person in your company, because you don't need anybody else until you make a sale.
That's true.
Engineers don't agree with me on that one, but that's a true statement. You know,
they can't usually sell anything either. So, Byron, did you have any questions?
No, I don't. No, I don't have any questions. Not right now. I don't.
All right. What about you, Lance? Anything?
No, not nothing off the top of my head. I mean, just knowing that I need to sit down and actually start doing some blogs. I have some up. I might up switch my website over to WordPress. So I know, we were talking about that before.
About time. Did I say
yeah.
About time.
It is about time. So yeah, just getting more of those blogs up on the site.
Okay. All right. Well, if we're all good, then I'm going to wrap it up for today. I don't need to kind of beat you guys into, and what I'm finding with these classes is we don't tend to run down as many rabbit trails as we do in person.
Yeah, that's great, man. You don't get all the stray questions that throw you off track.
And I'll tell you what, I had one that I did on writing that I ended up, by the time I cut all the commotion out of the video, it was down to 32 minutes.
Yeah.
It was really only 32 actual minutes of this. Some of these on this Zoom thing, I mean, we're a solid hour and a half, 2 hours. So
No, but like last week, it was 9 things that you wanted to do, and we got through 2 because everybody got off track and kept wanting to talk about other things, which is fine. I go to all your classes; it doesn't matter to me, but would have been nice.
What you hear me say, I think.
Yeah, well, I was gonna say it'd be nice to get through the 9 actual topics you wanted to carry, but again, like I said,
We have had it happen.
oh, That was your website audit. What does your website audit include? And we got
Well,
the
there's
title tag.
198 of those, so I think I would be talking from now to Christmas on 198. What I actually think I'm going to do is take that section by section and make that into podcasts, because I think you can't do that with a room full of people myself.
Cool.
I think
And,
because I think
and do give me a call later if you would, because actually the guy that I contacted you earlier wants to pay you. That's not a free service. I'm just trying to figure out how to get you guys involved so he can pay you.
Okay.
And then we're going to try to drive that thing for the plastic that we want to sell.
So,
Cool.
all right. Okay. Well, we'll do that. I'll give you either that or give me a call. I told Nancy the same thing. If you people don't call me, I don't ever think about it because my phone literally never stops ringing.
Yeah, well, that's kind of why I asked you to call me. I've called you a time or two, and I realize you're busy, so I thought, okay,
I don't pick up. That's exactly what the problem is. But if you don't remind me, then I don't.
I'll try you later. I have some stuff I got to do, but I'll try you mid-afternoon just so I can talk to you about it, because he wants to pay you to help him build his site.
Okay.
But yet at the same time, I'm going to work with him. But my point is, I'm not charging him. I'm working with them because it's for biodegradable plastic, and we're trying to build a site to sell biodegradable plastic.
Okay. All right.
Cool.
All right. Very good then. Yeah. Let me know on that, and then we'll go.
I will. I'll call you so we can figure out what the heck to do.
All right. Very good. Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I'll see everybody next week. Nancy, you can give me a call now if you want. Or you can just ask me whatever the hell you wanted to ask me, because these fine people are leaving.
See you guys. Bye.
Thanks, Beth.
Bye. Take care.
Bye.
Yeah, see, they're all leaving. There we go. Goodbye.
I'm trying.
I know, it's all good.
If it would let me out of here somehow. Oh, here we go. How about leave at the bottom corner? Leave meeting.
Bye, Jim. Okay, so now it's you and me. So now you can talk to me, but you have to unmute yourself. Unmute. Okay.
I should really know that. Yeah, I just wanted to.